What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to be continuing the 2022 pound US dollar backtesting session. We're going to be spending around an hour backtesting price, going through numerous trade examples and going through the full trading plan and strategy as well. So I won't waste any more time. Let's head right over to the charts and let's get right into the backtesting. Alright people, so thanks for joining me here over on the charts. Now, real quick guys, before we get into the backtesting session itself, recently I've been contemplating stop doing these backtesting sessions just because it does take a lot, it does take a lot of effort, and obviously trading is my main business, so it takes a lot of my focus away from that. So I'd really appreciate it if you guys could drop a like below this video if you want me to continue these backtesting series. But yeah, just let me know if I should continue them or not. Now, let's get right into today's session. So this was the final trade we took during last session, but we'll go ahead and start from a completely blank chart here. Now, let's zoom out to daily time frame. As always, you guys know I start my analysis on the higher time frame and work my way down. Basically, as well, the higher time frame, in my opinion, is the most important part, probably in the whole trading system, because if you know higher time frame bias, you can pretty much know with a high level of accuracy where price is heading longer term. So what we've basically got here, right, is price in this clear bearish trend on daily time frame. We've seen it mitigate into supply. Supply held, price created a lower low, and you can see price is kind of in this retracement phase right now. But what we saw at the end of last session was basically that price was approaching this area of daily supply right here, which is an area where we could potentially see price reverse from, right? And one of the things I like to emphasize to the guys inside VIP is that even if this is not going to be a complete reversal back to the lows, because it is such a clear daily supply zone, and because we've seen some higher time frame liquidity being swept into it, we could definitely still see price at least push away from it like this if it's going to continue up, right? And because we're using lower time frames in order to enter, a push away from this zone is all we really need to capitalize on, right? We don't need to be right about market structure. We don't need to be calling the exact tops and bottoms of the move. We can just basically look to capitalize on reactions from these POIs, right? Points of interest. So let's jump over to lower time frame. At the moment, you can still see price is clearly still bullish. This was the most recent breaker structure we had after price kind of retraced and held demand. Maybe we could look for one more buying opportunity up into that daily supply. Let's have a look. Not really seeing too much at the moment. Let me just play this on a little bit. Yep, so there you go. So sometimes GU likes to do this where it just goes on these rallies and doesn't really pull back, so you can't really get an entry. But yeah, price has now tapped into that daily supply. Hasn't broken any structure just yet, so let's just let it develop a little bit. You can see at the moment, demand is still holding. I wouldn't really want to buy from here though, because it hasn't really retraced at all for the buys, and also it is in that daily supply zone. So I'm just going to see how price develops here. All right, so this is the Asian session. Yeah, very nice. So you can see here, Asian session, we got a kind of sweep of this first mitigation of the daily supply. Once that happened, price then very clearly has now shifted over to the downside. You can see here all of that momentum coming in. In terms of an actual entry on this position, I would look at a retracement into this area of supply. So yeah, let's set a limit on this area and let's see if price retraces for us. Stops above the high on this one, and as always, you guys know my approach, mechanical 1 to 3 TP rule, just to remove any of the discretion and uncertainty in terms of where we target. So I'll place this limit and let's see if price retraces for us. If not, obviously we can just look for a new POI instead. Let's have a look. Maybe this one instead. Let's have a look. Yeah, so what I'm going to do here, I'm going to remove this initial limit. I'm going to set a limit on this lower down zone. And the reason why I'm doing this, right, is because we've now had price push away with quite a lot of momentum from that original zone. And what I've noticed here on the hourly chart is that this is the kind of last area you would expect price to hold, unless it's going to go back for the previous highs. We've got some liquidity resting below this area. There's a clear area of imbalanced supply after the change of character. So this is a completely valid trade for me, and I'm just going to set the limit. Obviously, if you wanted to, you could wait for another confirmation inside this area, but for me, this is already valid. So yeah, if you were waiting for another confirmation, as you guys know, I always get my entries on the M5 chart. If you were going to do that, there was one here, as you guys can see, change of character, retest into the supply. So that could have been the entry, but personally, I'm in this trade, so I'm not going to enter a second one at the same time. Let's see how this plays out. Ideally, price, yeah, there we go, breaks these lows. Nice one. So great first trade to start off the session, up 3% so far. And very clearly now as well, you guys can see price has continued on over to the downside. So what we're basically looking for here, now that price has tapped into this daily supply, is for price to gravitate back towards the current trend low. You can see there's not really anything. If you look to the left, and this is one of the things that has massively helped me in my trading, is continuously look to the left and ask yourself the question, is price likely to reverse from this level based on where it's coming to the left here? We can see it hasn't really swept anything significant in terms of liquidity, particularly if you look on daily time frame. It's held supply and it hasn't tapped into any demand zone or anything like that. So looks good to me for more sells lower. Let me just mark on this current breaker structure. So yeah, next idea for the sells, maybe if price can retrace into, I wouldn't go for this first one because there's no liquidity above it, but you guys can see we have a slightly more premium one up here. If price did create some liquidity below this first area, then it becomes valid for me, but at the moment there is no liquidity below it. Okay, now there is, so maybe we could look at retracement into this zone as a next POI. All right, cool. So price has tapped into this first area. Let's jump to the M5. Currently, I would need to see price break below this area for an entry. Has broken below it, but I'm not really liking how this is shaping up. Let's see. Yeah, so personally, now that it's come down and grabbed this low, I wouldn't want to sell from this area. Personally, just because I think, like, when you have a situation like this, price has held the low, these highs become weak highs. So I would want to see this taken out now. Yeah, there we go. So as I said, those highs were taken out, which kind of nearly always happens once the low holds. You don't really want to be selling below that. This is an interesting scenario though, because notice how here, this looks like a breaker structure, right? So this looks like a breaker structure. Price has created a higher high, but because we're aware of that overall higher time frame context and narrative, which is in this case a bearish trend, this for me, I would just view it as a sweeper liquidity for lower prices. You can imagine here that the kind of classic mindset is to buy after a break and retest. So what I'm going to look for here, price has swept liquidity into our supply. I'm going to jump over to the M5 and try to look for an entry for the sells. Let's have a look. So with this one, the confirmation would be if price breaks this low. That's the most recent higher low in that uptrend. So yeah, there you go. Price has now shifted over to the downside on the M5 chart. In terms of entries, we have this area of imbalanced supply. As you guys can see, very clear area of supply, created a lot of volume. One thing I don't personally like to do with my entries is be like ultra precise. So what I'll personally do is just have like a general idea. So essentially, and to simplify things as much as possible, what I look for is change of character plus imbalance and then a retracement. That's all I really need to see. As long as the risk to reward makes sense and as long as I can have my stop above the high or below the low, this trade is, you know, completely valid and I'm just going to execute it. I see a lot of people make the mistake of trying to over refine. For example, people would identify this as a supply and then wait for a retracement into that area. But what I've personally found is that it's better to just have this kind of more general entry rather than trying to be too precise. And 9 times out of 10, if you do try to be too precise and enter on these kind of really refined, overly refined areas, price is probably just going to end up stopping you out and your win rate is going to suffer because of that. So for me, maybe price doesn't want to retrace here, but at the moment, this is still a valid trade, right? There's no reason not to take this if price comes back up. Obviously, what I would do here as well is just keep an eye out for other entry opportunities. If price does continue down and doesn't want to pull back, you can actually see as well this area here was a 15-minute supply zone. We've got Asia high resting below it. Maybe what I would look for here as well is now that Asia high has been taken out, we could maybe see an entry from here instead, but I would want another confirmation on this. rather than just selling straight from it. So we did get a push, but there's no imbalanced supply here. And once again, you can see price held the low. So what we can basically anticipate once the low holds is maybe price wants to come back up and take these highs. I personally wouldn't want to sell below this anymore because price has held the low. So let's see if it wants to push back up. All right, so it did grab Asia low from Asia high. Our original entry is still valid if price wants to push up and grab these highs. All right, there we go. So we're tagged into this now. So far, nice reaction. You can see price swept this inducement. So yeah, let's see how this goes. I'll play it on higher time frame so it's a bit quicker. This whole region here as well, I kind of like because this is an hourly supply, like this whole area right here. Yeah, nice reaction so far. Liking the look of this. Yeah, there we go. So TP hit on that. Once you kind of see a scenario like this where you have inducement swept into the supply, then a push back down, you basically know that price is likely coming towards these lows. So that's a nice trade. We've now seen another breaker structure. What I'm looking for here now that the supply has held, I'm basically looking to follow this internal trend down towards these external lows. They're the external lows, by the way, just because that's the main trend, right? Relative to these breaks of structure here. So very simple, just like market structure, following the trend and basically just rinse and repeating the same thing. We're now looking for a pullback into a new POI. For me, this one stands out. I'm going to look for a retracement into there, obviously with confirmation in that area. Right, there we go. So price is tapped into our POI. Asia high has also been taken out during London session. So let's jump over to the M5, and as always, waiting for a change of character. Right, there we go. So you can see here, price created a higher high. Then we have that change of character. Price also created imbalance. So this basically validates the entry. And going back to my previous point, like I said, I don't look for ultra precise entries. So what I'm going to do here is just look for market execution. There's no reason to wait for a retracement here because the risk to reward is already worth it. So we'll just do market execution on this one. Obviously, like I said before, you could wait for a retracement into the supply, but is it worth it for a few extra pips? Not really. So yeah, let's see how this plays out. We've got a nice push so far. Yep, very nice. There we go. Let's see if it continues. No, so down. That went around 2.3% in our favor, then pulled back and stopped this out. I'm still interested in selling from here though. One thing I like to look for, and one of the things that makes these setups higher probability that I've personally found, is if the area of supply itself is swept, right? So what I would look for now is if this high here can go, which is the top of that supply zone, we could maybe look for some shorts from there. Actually, yeah, it was already swept actually. So this was the high of that supply zone. You can see it was just about swept. So let's have a look what price did on M5. Yeah, so I missed the entry here. It should have been this. So we had M5 change of character. Price then pulls back into this area of supply right here. Because I've missed this initial entry, what I would look for, obviously this is quite like fractal structure here, but we've seen price retrace into this area of supply after this change of character. Can we get a decent entry from this? 20 pip stop. Let's have a look. Where would we need to target? So I'm not really liking the risk to reward on this one. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to wait for a retracement into this area of supply and just have slightly bigger stop and go for our 1 to 3 again. So let's see if price retraces for us in this case. As I said previously, this should have been the entry, but I played price slightly too quickly there, so we missed it. Right, there we go. We're tagged in. Nope, looks like price wants to come higher here. That's fine. Let's have a look to the left again. Quite messy price action here, to be honest. Let's have a look. It has just taken out some more of these highs in that range. It's still also, like, notice here how it is still holding within this bearish structure. The most recent breaker structure was right here, meaning this is the lower high. So it's as long as it maintains below that area, I'm happy to continue looking for shorts here. Let's have a look. Yeah, there we go. So I think we were just slightly early to the move here. You can see price is now pushed down, giving us a change of character just here. Let's have a look on M15. So yeah, if I was looking for an entry here, this kind of whole region is the supply zone I would look at. Let's see if price can retrace into it. It's quite a big area, but I'm happy to take a trade like this. That's fine. Right, there we go. We're tagged into this. On the hourly, it didn't look like we were tagged in. I think, yeah, there you go. The perfect wick entry on that one, you guys can see. Price pushed up and wicked into this area. Took the last bit of liquidity before the imbalance. That's nearly always where you see price react from. So let's see if we can get a continuation into these lows. Yeah, there we go. So lows have been taken out. Hasn't hit TP yet, but let's see. Yeah, there we go. So TP hit on that one. Nice trade. First two entries were just slightly too early, but that's fine. Obviously, that one win made us back both those losses plus an extra 1%. So yeah, we've got another break of structure now. So again, just rinse and repeat in the same thing, looking for more continuations to the downside in this overall bearish trend. One thing I am going to do here, oh, and actually, yeah, so the main daily low has now been broken, so we can get rid of this. This was the internal structure, right? This was the main higher time frame low right here. If we just zoom out to weekly time frame, I want to be cautious of certain areas. Maybe, like for example, we have this weekly low and this weekly low, so I want to be a bit mindful of that if price does take them out. But overall, I'm looking, this is basically looking good for more continuations lower. So let's jump back over to the lower time frames and let's have a look at some more selling opportunities here. Currently, I'm not really seeing a clear POI. Ideally, once the main external low goes, you want to wait for a retracement. Obviously, you wouldn't want to just sell here because price is very likely going to retrace after sweeping that external low. So let's see here. All right, first POI, you can see price has come up, grab some of this liquidity here. Asia high was also taken out. We've seen quite a nice reaction from this. We've had a change of character. Price has created an area of imbalanced supply. So change of character in this case would be this one right here. So yeah, this is a perfectly valid trade. I'm going to set this. I would say it's slightly riskier because the external low, like I said, has just been taken out. So you could maybe see a bigger retracement. But yeah, let's just see how this plays out. Price created some inducement below it as well. Let's see, we've kind of got this floor of liquidity now below as well. Yeah, nice, there we go. And looks like price, no, I was going to say price wanted to reverse straight after, but not quite. It came almost to our stop loss, but slightly missed it. You can see price overall held this supply zone. That probably would have been a nice second entry, but I personally wouldn't have taken that because of how we were basically just taken out of this first trade. All right, cool. So you can see now price has created a new low again. Continuing on with this bearish structure. Quite choppy price action here though, to be honest. At some point we might see a deeper retracement now that this main low has been taken out. I'm just being mindful of that. But yeah, overall, next POI, this kind of whole region here is a 4-hour supply zone that price has just tapped into. Based on how it's pushed up here though, what I would want to see first is at least these highs taken out. So yeah, let's have a look if that gets taken out. Yeah, there we go. All right, so yeah, so here, this was my point. After that external low was taken out, you're kind of expecting this bigger retracement at some point. You can see now price very clearly starting to reverse. So next POI for the shorts would probably be, you can see these highs right here that lead into this imbalance. We kind of have this supply zone, but personally what I don't like doing is notice how this supply zone was wicked out by the following candle. I don't typically like going off those areas just because they very rarely hold from experience. Still overall bearish on daily time frame. So yeah, let's have a look. I'm not really too keen on buying here. The overall trend is still bearish. But yeah, let's see how it reacts to this. Actually, we also have this area to the left, which is an hourly supply. Obviously a very significant hourly supply, which grabbed highs to the left, created a lot of imbalance. So could definitely see a reaction from there. Let's have a look on, yeah, so M15 very clearly still bullish. Slowly creeping up to the supply. I'm going to fast forward the Asian session. I live in the UK, by the way, so Asia session is overnight, which is why I don't trade it. And I personally also would highly recommend not trading Asia session on a pair like GU, because it typically will just consolidate. Right, cool. So we've had price tap into our hourly supply, which was our POI. Price has now created a change of character just here. Asia high has also been taken out as a nice extra confluence. I played price slightly too quickly there again, but an entry on this imbalanced supply would have been the ideal entry. What I'm going to do here is see if price retests into it. Just because if I enter market execution here, price has already ran away from us a little bit, so the risk reward isn't going to be great. So yeah, we'll see how this plays out if it lets me place the trade. Right, there we go. Nice, we're tagged in. Let's see how this goes. Liking the look of it so far. Yeah, there we go. Nice volume coming in. Cool. TP hit on that one. As always, guys, I don't make my trades break even, and this is kind of one of the reasons why. You can see, I know a lot of people have this rule where, for example, if price breaks structure again, they make the trade break even, but a lot of the times the entry area you have is going to be an area price wants to tap into multiple times. So with the 1 to 3 risk to reward, obviously if you're using higher risk to reward, I would use a break even rule. But with the mechanical 1 to 3, I personally just, you know, SL or TP, set and forget approach. So yeah, price has now swept some highs into this area of supply. Keep in mind that overall higher time frame is still bearish. So, and this is an important point, guys, as well. This is one of the things I was telling the guys inside VIP, which is that in an overall bearish market, I wouldn't view this as a change of character and look for buys. I would just view it because when price pulls back in an overall bearish market, right, it's always going to take out some of these internal highs before going lower. Doesn't mean it's a change of character for a complete reversal. It's probably just a sweep of internal liquidity. The only exception to this rule would be when price sweeps an area of significant liquidity to the left or taps into a higher time frame demand / supply. But in this case, it has not done either of those two things. So chances are we just see price continue the overall bearish trend from here. In terms of another entry opportunity, let's jump over to lower time frame. So what I would look for now is a retracement, but let's see if price does that first. It might just want to continue selling off here. Yeah, nice. So we've got, notice here how we've got this very sort of corrective pullback. In a situation like this, what I would kind of anticipate would be maybe like a few more sweeps of the high, then price just going down from here. Let's have a look. We've kind of got this 5-minute supply to the left. Nothing in terms of entries just yet. I'm not too keen selling below these highs. Let's see. Ideally, I want those to be taken out first. All right, no. So seems like price just wants to continue down from there. Could still see this taken out, to be honest. I'm not really keen on how price left those highs above. I might try. This is going to be a riskier trade and lower probability because obviously it's counter trend. But like one perspective you could take here, right, was that this was a change of character. Obviously keeping that in mind, price has retraced into this area of demand. Asia low has been swept during the London Open, and price is about to give us a 5-minute change of character just here. So let's see. All right, we have our change of character. Entry on this one. Ideally, it would be on the whole imbalance like this, but I don't think the risk to reward is going to be worth it if we do that. Let's have a look. If we target this high. No, so I would want a bit of a bigger retracement than that down to this area, just so it makes it a 1 to 3. So let's see if price retraces here. Right, there we go. So price has tagged us in now. Obviously, we could have entered on this demand maybe. Nope, so low SL on that one. Like I said, I knew that trade was a bit lower probability. What I'm going to look for now instead is I'm just going to wait for the sells, to be honest. I'm seeing more sells down into these previous lows. Maybe we were just a bit too early on the longs. You can see price took out that demand we were buying from. Yeah, I missed the entry here. It should have been on this demand. I'm going to set, if price retests this demand, I'm happy to get back in. If not, I'll leave it, but let's see. And once again, just going for a 1 to 3. Actually, I'm happy to have a bit of a bigger SL on this one. If we target that high to make it a 1 to 3. Right, there we go. We're tagged in. This is the last attempt at the buys. Yeah, there we go. So SL on that one, like I said, counter trend, so lower probability. Still interested in sells if this high is taken out, and the reason for that is because this is the last high before this imbalance, and price is overall still in that bearish trend. Don't really want to sell below that high. All right, so that high has now been taken out. Asia high has also been taken out. So let's see if we can get an entry here. Yeah, there we go. Lots of momentum coming in, you guys can see. Clear change of character on M5. I can't really see a clear entry on M5, so let's go over to M15. Maybe if we can see a retracement into this supply zone. Let's have a look if price can do that. Damn, pinpoint entry on that one. There we go, TP hit. 0 drawdown almost. Surprised that actually tagged us in, to be honest, but very nice. And once again, guys, I want to re-emphasize this point. It's important to focus on this, which is when the price sweeps the last bit of liquidity before the imbalance, it very nearly always gives a reaction, which we can capitalize on using our lower time frame entry model. So what I'm looking for now is just more continuations, essentially, down into the previous low. So can't really see a clear POI here, but let's let price develop a bit. All right, no, so just wanted to sell straight off into the lows. As you guys can see right there, we had this new breaker structure. This now becomes internal structure, so it's no longer relevant. If we zoom back out to 4 hour, yeah, so you guys can see very clear bearish momentum coming in. I'm only looking to sell here. But yeah, obviously we need a retracement now at some point. Let's see what price does here. This is very hard to trade, like these situations, because it just doesn't pull back. Yeah, so like weekly time frame wise, there's not really anything significant here, really. Maybe we could see a reaction to this weekly low right here, but apart from that, we kind of have a clean run back to this low, and then eventually probably this low as well. But yeah, this is very hard to trade because at some point you want to see a retracement, but it doesn't look price is given one. Yeah, so you can see Asia session swept the liquidity, pushed down. Nope, so still we're not really getting any retracements here. Just looking to follow this structure down. This is our new breaker structure. Let's see if price can retrace here. Nope, still just going. No retracements. So it has kind of pulled back into this supply. Again, I want to be a bit careful here because it hasn't really retraced on higher time frame. But yeah, you could kind of consider this a new breaker structure. Asia high was taken out into the supply zone. We've had a change of character. Plus an area of imbalanced supply. So yeah, this is technically a valid trade. I'm not that keen on it, but let's take it because it's completely valid still. And yeah, the reason I'm not keen on this, by the way, in terms of like it being a high probability trade, is just because if you look on, for example, 4 hour, price hasn't really retraced at all. So at some point, you're probably going to see a bigger pop up and a bigger retracement. But yeah, for now, let's just have a look how this goes. Nope, no pullback again. Price just continued to sell off. Analysis was great though. Price tapped into that area perfectly. We've now had, if we mark this on, a new breaker structure. Right, so price has taken out the top of this supply zone. I want to be mindful here of this demand. Reason being, it kind of created an hourly change of character, so this could definitely be maybe the start of a bigger retracement. If you look on higher time frame, right, still hasn't really retraced this. If you look on daily in particular, price is just trading like all the way down here. At some point, we probably will see a bigger push up. But yeah, let's see how it reacts to this high. I would be comfortable selling from this if we get something clean. Yeah, so something like that. Change of character. Let's see if price retraces for us. I don't want to target below that area of demand though. So I'm going to just refine my entry a bit. Alright, we're tagged in. Nope, looks like price wants to continue up. Next liquidity level or a point of interest would be this one. Again, we still have this area of demand to consider as well for potential buys, because you could say that this was a change of character. We've now got some inducement above it as well. So let's see. No change of character there. Thing is with this, like I'm really confident price is probably going to at least take this low. Maybe if it taps into this supply zone, but there is no change of character here on, if you look on M5, like there's no structure that price has broken. So what I would do, maybe look for another confirmation inside this area after Asia session. So let's see. Right, so price has wicked into it. Yeah, this is a riskier trade, but I'm going to enter this. We've had wick out of that, change of character here. Let's see. This was the change of character, by the way. Let me just mark it on. So this right here was a change of character because price created a higher high, tapped into the supply. And one thing, like I said, there's no real change of character here on the lower time frames, but I'm confident that price is probably going to at least take out this liquidity, because if you notice here, it's retraced down, no liquidity has been taken out. Yeah, there we go. Nice trade to sell into the liquidity. Now that this has been taken out, we could potentially consider some longs from the demand. Maybe, but it still seems... I would prefer here to view this from the perspective that this was just a sweep of liquidity for lower prices. So I'm not really too keen on buying there, to be honest. Yeah, I'm just going to look for more shorts here, to be honest. Maybe if we see a retracement into the 4-hour supply zone here. Did get a small reaction from the supply. Yeah, Asia slash, you can see here, London open, Asia high was swept. That's annoying. This was the change of character. We could have got an entry here, but slightly missed that. Actually, no, to be honest, this was the change of character here. That was the most recent higher low. If price can retrace here into, this is the imbalanced supply, I'm happy to sell, but I don't really see it retracing, to be honest. It doesn't look like that likely. Oh, no. A sell hit on that one. That's fine. Let's see. It's still within the supply zone, so we could still see the shorts. I'm liking here how we've had this very corrective looking pullback. Again, this looks like a breaker structure, so everybody's probably going to be trying to buy on a break and retest. In terms of entries, there's nothing here. The change of character would be below this low. Yeah, so technically we've had a change of character there, plus an area of supply. This is the area I'm going to enter from, if price can retrace into it. Let's see. Nope, so this is no longer valid because price broke the main low, which was this one. Let's see, it probably isn't going to pull back here. This is still a valid POI if price pulls back into it, but we would need another confirmation now. Right, price has pushed back up into it. Nice reaction so far. Not really anything here to enter from though, so there's not going to be an entry on this one. Yeah, damn. Good thing we didn't enter on that one. Next idea for shorts. Let's have a look. Could maybe see, like I said before, instead of viewing this as a breaker structure, because of this overall bearish trend and because we've had this very clear bearish structure coming in, I would just view this as a sweep for sells. We also have a 4-hour supply zone here. Maybe price wants to tap into that. But let's see how price reacts to the liquidity itself here. See if we get a change of character. Like I said before as well, even if this isn't going to be a complete move back to the lows, it could still definitely react to this level because it's such a significant liquidity level, right? This is Asia though, so I'm going to fast forward this. We've had our change of character just here. Not really keen on this, to be honest. We've got all of these highs above. Alright, so I would want another confirmation on this, but maybe we've seen a sweep of this last bit of liquidity before the imbalance. Let me just check 1H. We also technically have this area. Yeah, price went from that first area. Like I said before, guys, make sure to focus on last bit of liquidity before the imbalance. Price will very often react to that. So yeah, we've had another break of structure now. Now we can look for another selling opportunity. I'm going to keep this one on because if price comes up there, still a valid POI. Not seeing anything clean here, to be honest. Let's see on daily time frame. Right, let's see. I want to be a bit careful here of this weekly liquidity level. If that's taken out, could see a potential reversal. But let's see how it reacts to this. So we've had a lot of volume coming in here. You can see price has shifted bullish on hourly time frame. One thing about this, right, if we look on daily time frame, one thing I like here in terms of buys is price has made this extended move down on daily time frame. We're seeing this retracement and price has not yet swept any higher time frame liquidity. This is the next higher time frame liquidity level that we could at least see price head up towards because there's nothing to the left here for it to react from. So what I'm going to do here is actually look for buys up into that liquidity based on how hourly time frame has impulsively shifted bullish here. Currently this is the only bullish POI I have. Alright, so price has retraced down into it. Let's see, M5 time frame. Cool, we have our change of character just there. Price created an area of imbalance down here. So I'm entering on the whole imbalance here. Stops just below the lows. 1 to 3 TP. Damn, just missed us. Let's see if it comes back. It doesn't look like it wants to be honest. I'm going to cancel this one now. Actually, no, I'm going to get in this market execution. Still a valid trade. Asia low has been swept into it. Oh, nice reaction, actually. There we go. TP hit on that one. Very nice. So now that this demand has held, we can basically look for longs up into these previous highs. There's not really anything stopping price from getting there. Next point of interest following this lower time frame structure would be this 15-minute demand. All right, no, doesn't look like price wants to retrace for us here. And yeah, we have had now another break of structure. So once again, just looking to follow this bullish structure up into the liquidity. Next point of interest would be this demand. All right, there we go. Price tapped into it. Very clear hourly bullish structure here as well. Let me fast forward Asia. All right, Asia pushed up. We've had a change of character. London open, we've got this area of imbalanced demand. So if we can see a retracement into this, that's going to be a lovely entry, and stops just below this one. In a case like this, there's no point having stops all the way below here, because you know that if this area here breaks, there's nothing else for price to react from, so it's probably coming for the lows anyway. So this is the trade. We'll place this order. Can it retrace for us? Let's see. Right, there we go. We're in. Let's see, can it keep pushing? Yeah, there we go. Nice TP hit on that one. And as always, guys, stop loss placement, place it below the demand with a little bit of room, because price very often will do this, where it sweeps the demand before then going in your intended direction. We've still got this very clean bullish structure forming. So if we just mark this on, we've had another breaker structure right here. We've now got a new POI just here. Let's see if price retraces. I'm just going to zoom back out as well and mark on. You can see price very clearly gravitating towards that high. I want to know when that high is taken out, because that's where you could see price start to reverse. Right, we've seen a push down. In terms of POIs, it's still within this 4-hour demand zone, this whole area. So this is my next POI. Let's have a look. Only thing with this is there's no M5 structure just yet. All right, now we've seen it. So price re-grabbed the low, right? We've had a change of character just here. Price created an area of imbalanced demand. Let's enter on this area. Stops below the low. And again, just mechanical 1 to 3 TP. All right, we're in. Nice. Let's see. I like this as well, because this whole area here, there's nothing for price to react from. It's just like a big imbalance. If I was looking for another entry here, probably it would go from this demand, now that price has broken structure again. Asia low was also taken out into it, which is quite nice. Let's see if we can get another entry here. So yeah, we've had a change of character here. I'm going to see if I can enter from this demand. If it comes any lower than that, I don't really want to be in the trade. Let's see. Obviously as well, if I was entering both of these, I would make the first one break even. All right, no, so stop loss on that. Damn, I think we might have just been slightly early there. Yeah, that's annoying. Just slightly too early on that one. Actually, looking back at that, let's have a look what I did wrong there. So yeah, ideally, because there was no liquidity above this one, we were kind of buying in a premium as well. We should have entered from this lower down demand. That was a mistake of mine. I probably wouldn't have entered from that one in the live market, because there was no liquidity above it and it was in a premium. So that was my mistake. But yeah, TP was hit on this first trade anyway. And that daily liquidity was taken. But I think this is a great place to stop, guys. So before we do that, let's just have a look at the analytics so far. See if we're on the right track. So this is the 22 session. We're at 54% win rate, not too bad, with a 1 to 3 risk to reward, just slightly over. And so far the maximum loss streak has been 5 trades, but that's completely fine. Obviously if we did that and we were risking 1% on prop firms, we wouldn't breach the account or anything. So yeah, great statistics so far, guys, and I'll let you guys go through this in your own time if you want to pause the screen here at any point. But yeah, guys, thank you for watching today's video. As I mentioned at the start, I was thinking of stopping these backtesting sessions because they take a lot of time and effort, so let me know in the comments if I should continue them or not. And yeah, that's it for today's video, guys. I hope you all enjoyed, and make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.